So here we go then, race number 7 of the round-robin stage of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup qualifiers. The opening race of this day, Sweden against France, and the dogfight well underway in the pre-start.
Just an amazing surroundings. Imagine having a house right there in the background, watching these guys ripping around a couple hundred meters off your front porch.
There are a few better places to watch top-flight sporting action.
So this is the dance we were talking about. This is coming up to the start line. Frank Hamas coming in from behind Nathan Outeridge and trying to do what's called a hook maneuver. But they gap off a little bit. Again, Outeridge is probably just thinking, we need to get off clean. Hamas is coming up slowly underneath. They do have right away. Artemis is in a slightly vulnerable position here right now on the left-hand side of our screen. Hamas actually has him pushed away and should. It doesn't matter that they're late for the start, but will absolutely take this start. Very aggressive, really good, solid moves by Frank Hamas.
So a canny start from the French, just maneuvering their way into position as they hit the start line in front, and the Swedes have a little bit of catching up to do. Nathan Outeridge perhaps outwitted at the outset, and they are flying across wind, reaching for mark number 1.
Very, very solid job by Frank Hamas and his team right there. They got aggressive, they got underneath Nathan Outeridge, who's a little early for the line, and they look fairly stable on their foils so far. That was the thing that plagued them yesterday, was that instability. Let's see if they get around this mark and keep it nice and solid.
That was their downfall yesterday, the ability to keep that stability when up on the foils as they head to mark 1 and round it in front of one of the favorites for this competition as a whole, the Swedes, who've been out in Bermuda for some time, and they've really been setting the pace in practice as the two boats head downwind for the first time.
Very solid so far, but this first jibe is crucial for the French. Let's see if they can stay ahead in what was definitely their Achilles heel yesterday. Oh, you see him come off the foils. Artemis stays on the foils. This is going to be a pass right away. Exactly what we were talking about.
Just a really good example, isn't it, of how critical clean maneuvering is. One small error can cost you vital meters.
And this is going to lead them right into the mark, so really not another chance back for Groupama to try to jump back over top of Artemis. So, just a shame. I would imagine all French fans had their heart in their throat there for a second, hoping that they could have a nice smooth jibe, and they touched the water with both hulls, and that's all it took for Artemis to slide on by.
Some fabulous work from Nathan Outeridge and the Swedish team as they round gate 2 and head upwind for the first time this afternoon. And again, the French just failing to make their way round the gate without those hulls dipping in.
Same exact situation coming into that mark. A lot of teams are trying this split at the bottom gate, which means a last-second jibe, just like Groupama Team France. But the teams that are slick are doing that maneuver while staying on their foils. The teams that are struggling come off.
So the Swedes moving along crisply, nicely, cleanly. Let's check in for the first time this afternoon with Joey Newton, part of Oracle Team USA, but he's out on the water for us this afternoon. Joey, give us an idea of the conditions out there and how you see this particular battle shaking up.
Hi, Ali. Hi, Ken. We've got about 10 to 12 knots out here, which is perfect for these boats, but interestingly enough, it's right on the crossover for the foils that are in these boats. And I've seen Artemis out there, and they appear to have a different foil on each side of the boat, one high speed and one low speed. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out for them.
Great to have Joey out on the water for us, bringing us a unique perspective, and so too some of these camera angles as well.
Yeah, so we'll look, that was a fairly small foil on this side, and it looks like Shockingly enough, Joey is spot on. This looks like maybe a longer foil on that they just lifted up out of the water. We'll have to get our crack statisticians in the back room. Maybe they can figure out how to measure these for us and confirm that one is longer than the other. But certainly the light air foil, that horizontal foil right here, it's going to be longer if it's a light air foil. It'll be shorter. It'll only be about, a 1.5 feet, maybe a third of a meter shorter if it's their high speed. And Joey, let's go back to that for a second. Why? If you could explain, if you could explain why you'd have two separate foils.
It's an interesting question. Usually you put a smaller foil in or a more high-speed foil if you want to be faster reaching on the first leg of the race or the last leg of the race, and also a little bit downwind. But you'll pay a penalty for that foil when you're going upwind. So there's a bit of a crossover there between small and big.
So a narrow margin for the Swedes here, and Frank Camas hanging in.
Yeah, I got you then, Greg.
With the French team, who suffered two big setbacks yesterday, comfortably beaten by both the Americans and subsequently the Kiwis as well. Maybe the scheduling didn't help them an awful lot, Kenny, because they had to sail in race 1 and race 3 yesterday, and as we can see from the hard work going on both boats from the grinders, that really takes it out of you physically.
Well, I think the French supporters right now are thrilled with what they see. I mean, this is even though they're behind right now, this is a major difference. And you know, the other kind of equalizing factor is it's quite shifty out there again. We saw big 25-degree wind shifts yesterday, which allowed some teams to come from way behind to way ahead. And the French are right up even. It looks like the breeze has gone left on this part of the beat. They're going to tack, and they're going to be very close to Artemis. And this would be a huge upset.
So the fly time, the amount of time the boats are up on the foils being measured constantly, and as we were talking about yesterday, the potential for some of these crews to navigate the entire course whilst their hulls barely touch the water.
Very close cross coming up here right now. It looks like the French team is dipping behind Sweden. Sweden is the right-of-way boat. It's on starboard tack. The wind is coming over the starboard side of the boat. French do a dip, and they're going to lay the gate. The French could be ahead when we come into this gate. If they can lay that end of the gate, the right-hand end of the gate, as we look forward, if they can lay this end of the gate, they'll be in good shape. All of a sudden, a big light air patch. Gosh, the angles, look at the angle differences. Look at the boat angle differences all over the place there. That's a lot to do with the wind velocity, not only the shift, but the actual velocity. Let's see if they can stay up on their foils through this tack. If they can, they got a chance of crossing. What a difference a day makes for Groupama Team France.
Well, we know it is as much a development and design battle as a tactical one out on the water as well. And every single day they will come in, they will analyse, they will work to improve their boat, their systems, as the French hit the gate in front.
Banderie identificateur, vous pouvez y aller. Et stand-by.
An all-French crew.
With a big lead right now. I mean, those two shifts at the end plus obviously they went very well upwind. They had foiling tacks. They've been on their foils 95% of the race so far, even though it looks like the Swedes are a little smoother with regard to their tacks and jibes. Those big wind shifts were critical.
So the Swedes being put under a little bit of pressure that perhaps they might not have expected to be under this afternoon. Again, smoothly up onto the foils and ripping away downwind towards gate 4 of 7, but there the gap opening up between themselves and the French. And what a turnaround in fortunes this would be if the French could cling on to that lead.
This would fall, you know, even in this early stages in the event, this would fall under the major upset category. Just a terrific amount of momentum to be had for the French to hold this on, to hold on to this lead.
Well, a credit to them all, particularly to that man in your shot, Franck Camas, 44-year-old from Aix-en-Provence, his first America's Cup, a legend of offshore sailing, and looking to transfer all of that experience, all of that quality onto the America's Cup class.
Yeah, don't look behind, Frank, because they're coming. They're coming fast. We saw him glimpse behind. I don't think... Sail your boat.
There's Ian Percy, the team manager and the tactician of the Swedish team. 2 gold medals to his name from Sydney and Beijing.
Think about it. Setting up.
Whole heap of quality on that boat.
Again, Groupama, can they stay smooth through this jibe? If they can, just a huge advantage. Looks like they stayed up on their foils. And maybe not the smoothest one by Artemis. Wow, what a turn of events.
Just a little ragged from the Swedes, which is not something we've been used to saying. Certainly not in recent times. A little inconsistent through the course of the Louis Vuitton America's Cup World Series. Good victories, but lots of blowouts as well. But away go the French. They are flying towards gate 4. And dictating terms here this afternoon.
Yeah, the little things, the ley lines, the keeping it on the foils, going around the marks, the little things is what's separating the solid players from maybe the not so solid players right now. And he said in his pre-race interview, they had a long debrief last night. Man, oh man, I want to know, what did they say in that debrief?
Textbook, rounding the gate and heading upwind for the final time in the race, and they are applying the pressure all the time to the Swedes, who will come for them now, surely.
No split by the Swedes. They're just going to try to grind them down, sailing in similar water.
So the French taking it almost all the way to the boundary.
Not such a great tack right there. Their hull landed down on the water. When that happens, you come out very wide on your angle, wide to the wind on your sailing angle, and you can give away big chunks of distance in a very short period of time.
That was really well illustrated by the loss of speed as well. They dropped right down to 14, 15 knots or so. The Swedes similarly there as they maneuver.
2, 1, and taking off.
Going back out to Joey on the water, Joey Newton. It seems a little lighter than we saw maybe yesterday. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Ken. It's dropped down a little bit since start time, but just as we're talking about that, the breeze has filled a little bit for Frank on Team France. So I think he's heading the right way. He's looking pretty good right now.
So the French in charge, and the Swedes looking to make up ground. They have closed the gap. We know they have a quick boat. We know they have quality all across their crew. They will be doing everything within their powers to reel the French back in. The outsiders, those who were, let's be honest, not expected to challenge for the greater glory towards the end of this month.
One more maneuver, hopefully, for Franck Camas and the French team. They want one more tack towards that gate. Try to do what's called the ley line, the shortest amount of distance. A good tack. They kept that leeward hull for the most part completely out of the water. But if they can minimize their maneuvers now, these guys aren't getting further behind. They're not slow on Artemis, but they have to be perfect. They have to minimize the maneuvers. Hopefully, they're laying the gate right now.
70 meters the distance. One more gate to get through. Downwind for a final time, and then reaching across to the finish.
The Swedes will have starboard tack advantage. If they're not laying the gate, which it looks like they probably aren't at this stage, the French are going to have to tack back onto port tack. They are the burden boat. They're the giveaway boat. They're going to have to get across in front of Artemis Racing. So this next tack is going to be crucial.
Juggling for right. Struggling for right, guys. Sa ligne derrière, belle règle 45. Assez fort. 23.
Tell you, these guys are going okay. We're looking at the boat speeds that are showing up on top of the rig from time to time, and they're not going slow, the French.
That has been the message, hasn't it? Anecdotally around the place, around the America's Cup Village, talking to those who know. The French have not got a problem with their boat. The boat is as quick as anybody's. But the issue up until today had been that stability in the maneuvers. And
big moment here. Can they tack and cross Artemis? With a good tack, they should be able to. And they do. They had a good tack. Another great tack. Again, though, minimize the maneuvers, fellas. Get to that gate with as few tacks as possible. Let's see if they called the ley line correctly. Time running out for Artemis Racing. Again, a major upset in the makings.
C'est pas grave, on refera un virement. Ça va virer là? Ça va virer, ouais. Ça passe? C'est pas grave, on n'a pas le choix.
so the French setting the pace.
Tight ley line.
They're closing in, and they know that a first victory here would do wonders for them. Do wonders for their morale, their belief. They kept that very, very tight to the gate.
Tight ley line. They just were a little early on their tack to the mark. They came off their foils. And we're going to find Artemis is going to come zipping right up behind them. For sure, that cost them as they come into the mark a little bit.
Well, this is going to make for a brilliant finish, or it should do anyway. Artemis Racing, the Swedish team, all hands to the pumps, high up on the foils and flying across the water at 32, 33 knots, trying to hunt down the French and making a very good fist of it at the moment.
It's the little things, Ali, the little things, and just being shy on that ley line there. Let's hope it doesn't come back to bite them. Again, Artemis crashing down.
Right.
100 meters, really not an awful lot, and being closed all the time by the Swedes. That last mark, the final one before the finish. Real question of mettle here for the French. Can they hang on? Can they make sure their advantage pays? They have, for the most part, been in charge of this race. They manoeuvred really well, very cleverly at the outset. Frank Camas, a smart starter. We saw that numerous times, didn't we, in the World Series? Not always resulting in victories for the French outfit, but here, looking to really make it pay.
This is the jibe, Ali. This is it. You know, stay on your foils. Nice, smooth jibe. One and in. Come on, fella.
Ouch.
Well, pop right out of it. That's okay. As long as you don't keep both hulls in the water for a prolonged period of time, typically you can be okay.
But even that short time in the water means that the other boat is gaining all the time. And look at the speeds here. The Swedes still creeping up on them. They are breathing down the French necks.
Oh, here comes our blast reach to the finish. Not time for the French to get unstable, that instability that we've seen. Here we go.
Into the final gates, and the Swedes bearing down on the French. This should be a brilliant finish for all those on the shoreline. This is what they came for. This is what the sporting fans were after.
35 knots on both boats right now, flying high on Groupama.
The Swedes at this point, we understand, marginally the quicker, but there is not an awful lot in it, and they are running out of time.
About halfway down this leg right now, you can see the finish mark right in front of Groupama. That's where they're heading. With the race village just to the right, I mean, literally, the finish line is 150 meters in front of our booth here right now.
They are closing. They are still closing, the Swedes, but the French look like they might just have enough in the tank.
Holy mackerel. What a shot.
I think we can safely say they are there. What a turnaround for the French. And Frank Camas absolutely obliterated yesterday. And now holding off the Swedes in fine style. What a finish. What a race. And they can be very, very pleased with that effort. Suddenly, their challenge looking like a really genuine one. A marker laid down, and the rest of the fleet will take note.
Congratulations. I mean, what a fantastic, fantastic race. The crowd is going crazy here. You can hear them all up and down the coastline. Everybody realizes what they just saw, an upset by a team who's been working exceptionally hard to be in this event. Never mind take a race from one of the people who was thought to be a real leader of the challengers coming into this series.